Hey guys, Grant here with OMG Tutorials, another beginning tutorial. I'm going to cover just a few things real quick. I'm going to go over window arrangement and also how to set up a proper timeline before you begin a project to make sure you have the best quality video that's coming out of Final Cut Pro. The first thing you're going to notice is this is a standard setup. I never ever use this setup for two reasons. A, I plug this into a separate monitor and edit with two screens. It's a lot easier, especially when you get a large project going. It gets very cluttered very quickly, and it's just nice to have that type of real estate to work with. But the most common thing I use with, when I'm out on the go, just having my computer editing, I'll just use the two up. Now to switch the arrangement, go to Window, hover above Arrange. It's going to give you these different layouts, but also it's going to ask if you want to have the audio mixing window pop up. So I'm going to hit that one just real quick to show you. So this gives you all four of these plus your audio mixer. Now you don't use this, or I personally just don't use this too much. The only time I do use it is at the very end of my editing. If I take a look at it and I feel like the audio levels are just a little bit too high or too low, I'll raise the entire level up just a few decibels, and also for color correction to check out your scopes and everything, see what you're working with. But the one I typically go with is the 2 up. It gives me the two largest work interfaces here on the top, the viewer and the canvas. So this just gives me a really easy way to edit, especially on the bottom down here. As soon as I've entered everything into my browser, I'll just take this bar and just drag it over a little bit, so I have a pretty good sized timeline to work with. So that's the first thing. The second thing I wanted to cover, now since I've arranged this to 2 up, so I want to cover how to properly set up your timeline so that your footage will be the best quality when you export. Now, depending on what type of footage you're shooting, whether it be a flip cam, GoPro, a Canon 5D, a Red, or Sony or JVC, you're going to have presets with them, and you're going to have a shooting style depending on what you're going for. I typically shoot in either 720 or 1080 depending on where my shots are being conveyed. If it's going to be on a primary viewing area of a 1080p, a Sony or a Panasonic, something big on, maybe in a personal residence or in a commercial area. But most of the videos I do, and most videos I know a lot of people do, are for web-based, and most computers are based on a 1280 by 720, and that's 1280 pixels across, 720 down. A lot of iMacs nowadays have a 2440 by some. It's just some insane amount. It's really cool to work on it. So depending on what type of footage you shoot, it's really going to determine how you're going to set up your actual timeline. Now let me just go and just grab a sample piece of footage. Now this is sample footage that I have from Spain, and this is my doorway, and this was my street. Let me bring in this one just real quick, and you're going to notice sample footage 1920 by 1080 24p. Now, just as a real quick educational tool, if you've ever wondered what P and I are, P means progressive and I is interlaced. I was what we used for many years, television, screen. Now it is P, which is a newer technology. It basically means if you have a screen of, let's just dumb it down from 1080 pixels high. Let's just say you have 10 pixels high. Interlaced means if it took all of those lines of information of color to pop off in each of those ones, interlaced would mean every other number. So all the odds, so it'd go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, they'd pop, and then the very next one would be the evens, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So go odds, evens, odds, evens, odds, evens. I would tell you to Google that and look up what it means to have something as interlaced, you'll see the real difference, and you'll realize why you watch, on a big screen TV, on a direct TV, when you're watching direct TV or some nice HD channels on an HD TV, you'll see what progressive, and you'll see the difference. So progressive, if you had those same 10 lines, the amount of time it took to pop off the interlace of the odds, evens, it would go 1 through 10 in that same amount of time. So it would get, yeah, you understand. So I am going to drag this over real quick. Here we go. Now it says, attention, this clip does not match this sequence in settings. Now, you can do this prior to even dropping anything in there by actually going on the top left to Final Cut Pro and going to Easy Setup, or right-clicking on the sequence itself and setting it up prior. But if I know that this is going to be my primary, height, scale, type of form that I'm going for by the very end, then the first clip that you put in there, it's going to match everything. Now I'm going to hit yes. It's going to take a second. Now the funny thing is if you say you have a bunch of pictures, say if it's a wedding or something, you have a bunch of video and you have pictures, and say you put everything in your browser first, if you were to have dragged a picture onto your timeline first, it would take the form of a picture, which would be 5100 by 3000 something pixels. I forget the actual Canon number that's on mine. And all of a sudden your HD footage right here wouldn't import correctly. So just to play this through, this is what the street looked like in Spain when I was over there this past summer. Now to see what you're working with, I'm actually going to go and right click on the sequence itself, and I'm going to go down to settings, and it's actually going to show you the frame size is 1920 by 1080, ratio is 16 by 9, and my editing time base is 24p, which it puts it in 23.98. Don't ask me why. And the compressor is H.264, which is the native compressor that comes right off the line when you use any type of, not any, but most Canon cameras. I'll talk about compression later and why to transcode into Apple ProRes. It's a lot easier to work with, and it's not a delivery type of codec. I'll explain more what that is later, but this just gives you the ability to see what type of settings you have. So when you want to import 1080 footage, you want to start with 1080 timelines, and you want to export with a 1080 compressor to make sure it's the absolute most cleanest look possible. But as you just go through here, you just make sure everything's set to your normal. Now one thing I'll tell you real quick is the starting time code. It's really confusing unless you switch this. It starts out as if it's already 1 hour, so I just switch this back to 0 and hit OK. So that means down here on the timeline you can see this number. It's at 7 seconds and 1/60th. So when I'm actually scrolling through here, I'm sorry, 1/30th it goes up to, which is really confusing sometimes. That's why you can right click here, switch it to frames or feet frames. So it doesn't add a 1, and especially when you're working with projects, longer projects, it gets really confusing when you're looking at the time. So that's the kind of basics of setting up a sequence and arranging everything just for fluid movement. So that's it for now. Look forward to the next tutorials, and yeah, take care.